Welcome to Caseback Watches. My name is Tim, and in this episode I like to speak about the tuning fork watch. And I wanted to start this video with a real tuning fork, with my old tuning fork. Was given to me at music school at age 14, I think, to actually tune the instrument, but I cannot find it anymore. It's forgotten technology. And then I called a colleague, another musician, and I tried to borrow his tuning fork, and he said, no problem, I'll find it for you, and he didn't find it. Forgotten technology. We all use now stage tuners. They are not as precise as a tuning fork, by the way, but yeah, you cannot use a tuning fork on stage, and so forgotten technology. And now the question, where's the connection to watches? And then we have to go back to the 50s. Excuse my voice, I was really sick, and my voice was completely whacked over days, and now it's getting better, but I sound a little bit crunchy. But now let's go back to the 50s and to the types of watch movements back then. Hand winding and automatic. Eterna had introduced their Eterna-matic, the first automatic movement with a ball bearing, and so very little friction, very efficient, very great movements. But the entire industry was aware that there was another innovation on the horizon. There was another revolution waiting for them, and they realized the company who could find this innovation, could develop it first, would be in a very good position. And then at Bulova's in the 50s, they've asked a very simple question. They wanted to go back to the roots, and they've just asked, what fuels a watch movement? What makes it precise? I mean, there's energy, stored energy. You wind your watch, or the automatic winds the watch, stored energy. The energy is then given to the movement, to the hands, in very small, precise steps. And you can see this nowadays. If your second hand makes 5 tiny steps in 1 second, then this is the beat, and the beat is the rhythm for the energy, for the stored energy, all right? So very simple thing. And if you imagine a beat now very fast, tick, 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 then you cannot distinguish anymore between single beat and a vibration. So all those beats go into a vibration. And so the answer to the question at Bulova's in the 50s was vibration. And then they've asked, okay, but what kind of device can provide such an accurate vibration? And then I think the guy with the guitar stood up and said, well, tuning fork, that's the tuning fork, guys. And of course, I can assume that this was a very crazy suggestion to put a tuning fork, they're about that size, to put this thing in a watch case. But you can do it, actually. You can do it. You can shrink the entire thing. As long as you maintain the proportions, you can make it tiny, the thing. And then they said, okay, now we have our beat rate very defined, our vibration. But how to power this thing, the tuning fork? We don't have a small musician in the watch who makes this movement, who bangs the tuning fork at the case. This is impossible. And so we need something else. We need a battery, right? They've used a battery to power this thing, and then they could hear their tuning fork, and without any break, without any interruption, so very good. They had their vibration. And the next step was then relatively easy. They placed the tuning fork in contact to a watch movement, and the vibration of the tuning fork set the watch movement in motion. That was the idea. They've built a prototype, and the accuracy of the prototype was beyond all mechanical movements. And I checked this with this watch, not with the time grapher, but with a super precise computer watch. And this watch loses about 1/3 of a second in a day. And so after 1 week you can't see a little difference, and I think after 1 month you should correct the time a bit, but that's it. So really huge success. This was seen back then as the next revolution. And then they presented the back then famous Bulova Accutron. And this was the first tuning fork watch on the market. And now let's change the perspective a bit. 60s, Apollo program. The question is now, Bulova had produced this wonderful precise watch. Why it wasn't the next moon watch? As we all know, the real moon watch was the Omega Speedmaster Professional hand winding, not even the automatic. They've used the hand winding mechanism for the moon watch. And the question is now, why? Why not the Accutron with this fascinating new technology? And there are several explanations to this. The first one is that hand winding is hassle-free. I don't know if this is convincing, to be frank. And the argument against automatic was that it cannot work properly without gravity. And this was proven as wrong later on, because an automatic watch movement doesn't need gravity, it needs the motion of your arm. So it needs the dynamic of your motion and not necessarily only gravity. But NASA was concerned about that. Maybe they thought it wasn't so efficient on the moon. And the third explanation I've heard is not exactly a bribe, but some sort of lobbying, that some groups with influence on NASA recommended the Omega Speedmaster Professional hand winding so bad that they've chosen that model. But later on, in the 70s, the Bulova Accutron was then a part of some Apollo missions, and went famous during those missions. I think that, if I recall correctly, there was one accident with a Speedy. The crystal popped out, and then the astronaut switched to his private owned Bulova Accutron, and so then it was on camera, and this was a huge advertising success for Bulova and the Accutron. But as we know today, this was some sort of transitional technology. The manufacturers realized very quickly that there are other items on planet Earth which can provide this sort of precise vibration. For example, quartz crystal. And so the next step was the development of the quartz movement, or the quartz crisis as we call it today. Okay, but now let's go to the light box, because I'm really in the mood now to present you this watch in detail and explain you why I think it's a very desirable technology and a very desirable watch even today, even with the existence of all those other movements, even if it's seen today as transitional technology. And so let's go. Okay, here we are with our Tissot Tissonic from the 70s. And first thing I want to mention here is the condition. Look at the condition. As this thing arrived, I thought, well, this may be my first new old stock watch, because it looked perfectly fine, in perfect, outstanding, immaculate mint condition. Really beautiful. Now you may find some tiny dings and dangs there, but I've made them. I have made them. So this was really very, very pleasant surprise for me. And now let's go quickly over the dimensions. 35 millimeters is the case diameter, which is rather small, but it wears super big. I will show you this thing on the wrist in a second. And you have this C-form case. We know more from old Omegas from the 60s, from the constellations. I've made a video about this type I really enjoy as well. And the case is very delicate produced, very high standards you can see here, between brushed and polished surfaces, executed absolutely flawless. The crystal, of course, is plexi. This fits the time. And you have this beautiful champagne, or even, it's a champagne, I don't know, it's a very bright champagne, maybe silver with a sunburst effect. This very classic look of the indices without numerals. Reminds me really of the heydays of Omega. And this shows that back then Tissot was in one league with Omega. So very crisp, clean timepiece. Undecorated caseback, only brushed. Tissot crown, marked. This is a Herzog strap, so this is of course not the original strap. 18 millimeters is the lug width. And so overall you can see, looks very modern. Looks very modern in my eyes. It looks super crisp and bright, and for me really is a pleasure to see this watch. And note please the second hand, sweeping seconds, so absolutely no signs of quartz here. The movement operates very simple. Pull the crown in position number 2, and then you can manipulate the time. And the date is position number 1, and goes like this. I mean, this is not very special. You can do it backwards as well. So very simple but efficient mechanism to change time and date. And now let's hear the movement, because this is the insane thing. You can hear tuning fork movements. You can really hear them. They make a very fine sound, exactly at 300 Hertz in this case. And this is marked here on the dial as well, 300 Hertz. And why do we call it Hertz, by the way? Because it was invented by Mr. Hertz. This is a simple explanation. Same thing with Gauss, which was Herr Gauss, and with kilogram, which was Senor Kilogramma. And so this is a very easy explanation behind this. And now I don't know if this works. I will put this thing on the mic and maybe you can hear this sweet sound of the tuning fork. Let's check this. Okay. If you cannot hear it, I mean, it's damn easy to fake it because I can download on the internet just the sound with 300 Hertz and then there it is. But I think you could hear the tuning fork sound. And if you place this in a very quiet room, let's say on a small table, and the table resonates a little bit, then you can hear it. Then you think at first glance, in my room is a mosquito, but this is then your tuning fork watch. And this is the aspect I really, really love. I mean, as a musician, how beautiful is that you have a little tuning fork on your wrist. And so this is definitely here, a keeper for me. I don't think that I will sell this watch because it's so special. The condition is so immaculate and so rare. And so I think I keep this watch. Okay, welcome back. I hope I have convinced you that this would be a good addition for your collection. And I can tell you how I bought mine. I saw it on a forum and I just read tuning fork Tissot Tissonic, and I thought, yes, I was slightly interested. But sometimes you see then that there's something really interesting. And you know what I've paid for this watch? 175 euros. Nearly new old stock, 175 euros. And you find this watch now for way more money on Chrono24. But the plan is not to rip off people here. And so please do not make an offer on Chrono. Do not try to buy it on Chrono, please. The watch is there as an advertising for Caseback watches, because I realized there are so many watch lovers on Chrono24, of course. And so I placed the watch there, I think nearly close to 500 euros. And in the description you only find, please learn more about my watches on Caseback watches. And so it's only an advertising, free advertising on Chrono. So please do not try to buy this watch on Chrono. It's not for sale, it's a keeper. Okay, and that's all. If you want, meet me on Instagram, please. I show their watches, but also other interesting and crazy shots. And now let me thank you very much for your attention, and maybe until next time.